I thought I would make a quick video. Somebody was asking about the King Arthur Rustic Sourdough bread. Good job, Pearl. So I thought I would just walk you through really quick how I make that. So what I have is 1.5 cups of lukewarm water, warmish. A cup and a half, and 2 cups of a fed sourdough starter. So you want it to be really nice and bubbly. The recipe calls for 1 cup. I actually do 2 cups because I like a stronger sourdough flavor, and I don't measure this. I just scoop it in there. I think the thing that I was most afraid about with bread is messing it up, but once you get the fundamentals down, it's a hard thing to mess up. So you just kind of eyeball about a cup or 2 cups in there. Sourdough starter does become like concrete if you don't wash it off your utensils right away, so make sure to not leave a spoon sitting out with it. A little more. And then this guy I will just feed and put right back in the refrigerator for the next time I bake. And then I'm going to do 2.5 teaspoons of salt. 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. You want to dump it in there? Dump. Okay. Another one. Dump. Dump. There we go. This is just a teaspoon. I don't use a measuring spoon. I kind of just guess. If you're just starting out, you may want to use accurate measuring utensils. But once you get the feel for it and the rise time and all of that, I don't feel like measuring is really that important. And then the recipe calls for about 5 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. I start adding my flour in about a cup at a time and keep mixing. You want to mix for me? Until it feels like it's something I can work with. So I just sort of start dumping it in there. I'm not a cooker. I don't cook with exact science. Otherwise it wouldn't be practical and I would never do it. You gotta find what works for you. Get your rhythm down with it. Here, let me take your time quick. Yeah. This is bread for Burl's birthday party tomorrow. She's gonna have some grandparents over. We're gonna have a little get together, and we're doing a baked pasta dish and 2 loaves of yummy garlic bread. So just keep going until it's something you can work with and kind of need. Once it's too hard for the spoon to stir or the mixer to mix, you can plop it out on your surface. I think the most helpful tips I've ever received on baking bread came from Bake with Jack. He has a YouTube channel and a blog. He's got some really good recipes. But if you go to the video about how he teaches to knead, it's so simple and it really helps you get a feel for it and find your own rhythm with it instead of reading recipe after recipe of how somebody says it has to be done. So this is just about ready to be worked with. I'm going to mix a little bit more flour in. You want it to be sticky. It's okay to be sticky. It does not, it'll come together eventually. It's okay to get your hands messy. Alright, that looks pretty good. So, clean hands. I'm just going to start working this. Get the flour off the sides.
Thanks for the thing.
And then I start kneading it in the bowl until it kind of comes together, and then I turn it out onto my surface. And I just set a timer for 8 minutes. I always knead my dough for 8 minutes, and it works really well. There's your dough. Get it off the bottom. I'm just going to pop it back. I use this non-stick pot when I'm baking bread because it can rise in there and it's not going to run out of space to get nice and puffed up. So this is still sticky. My hands are going to be sticky. And that is okay. I just want it to get nice and worked. Set my timer for 8 minutes. The goal of kneading dough is to get it to come to a point where it can be stretched without breaking. You don't want to break it over and over again, so you kind of want to gently knead it. Use your bench scraper, scrape it off. I don't add additional flour as I'm kneading. I just let it stay sticky, and it's just a mess. So that's going to give you a nice, you may, crumb, so I just stretch it and pull it back over itself. And you can see it is sticky. My hands are sticking to it. That's okay. Stretch it. So you don't want to be stretching it and breaking it apart. You just want to be giving it a little stretch on all the sides for 8 minutes. A lot of recipes say knead it until it's smooth. And okay, Pearl. Okay, Pop. It's not going to actually be smooth. I have found that it requires too much flour to get it to come to a smooth ball. And I like the chewy texture of when I knead it when it's really sticky like this better. Okay, Pearly. So I'm just going to keep kneading this and doing this for 8 minutes. And then I'll show you the next step. Alright, so I'm done kneading. I did my 8 minutes of knead time. And as you can see, this is still really sticky, but it's nice and stretchy. It doesn't break when I pull it apart. So what I'm going to do is, oops, turn my timer off there. Take my bowl. I'm just going to scrape this together, and I'm just going to plop it in there. And it is sticky. But it will actually start to kind of firm up a little bit as it rises, and as the gluten strands start to absorb all that flour, it'll come together really well. So just scrape a little off my hands here. And then I'm going to give it just a little dusting of flour. I don't spray with oil. Flour actually will lock in the moisture, so it won't dry out on top. It'll just be able to rise really well, and it's not going to be oily or greasy. You're not adding a second or an additional ingredient. So, I mean, it's not pretty. You just plop it in there. It's sticky and gooey and floppy. I just put it in there, and now I'm just going to let it rise for probably about 2 hours, but I'm going to watch it until it's really nice and puffy. You'll see that it's, you can push down on it, and if it's not springing back too much, then you know it's about ready if it's about double the size. And I'll show you the next step. All right, so it's actually been about 3 hours. I decided to let it go a little bit longer. My house is pretty cold. I think at a house that's the temperature of maybe like 70 degrees, it would probably rise within a couple hours, but my house is not that warm. So it took about 3 hours to get it to the point where I'm happy with it. As you can see, it's nice and full. It's still really kind of sticky, but it's ready to go. So I'm going to lightly flour my work surface here. And I'm going to turn this little flour on top here. I'm going to turn my dough out onto the floured surface with the floured side facing down. So I have a sticky side facing up to work with. So just use your dough scraper and kind of just get this out here. It's going to deflate, and that's good. We want to get some of those bubbles out. So, this guy turned out here. There we go. Right there. And then I'm just going to start pressing it and getting some of those air bubbles out. And if it's starting to stick to the table, you can just use your dough scraper and scrape some flour underneath so that it's not sticking to your work surface. Make another ring of flour around the edges. And put that underneath if you need to. Yours may be as sticky as mine. It might not be. It might not have any problems. And I'm just going to kind of press this out into a circle, making sure that it's never sticking to the table. See how it's just slides right around, not sticking at all. Looks a lot like a pizza crust. And then once it's in a circle shape, I'm going to take the sides and I'm start rolling it up into a ball. You want to make sure, if your dough isn't as sticky as mine, you want to make sure that there's a light flour coating on the back and not too thick. Otherwise, it won't roll into a tight ball. So you start bringing your edges in together, and you just keep doing this and pulling your edges tight, making sure it's not sticking until you have a nice, firm ball that you're happy with. This is called a pre-shaping. And because this dough is so sticky and kind of extra soft, it's not going to go into as firm of a ball, but it's pretty good. So here I have a nice firmed up ball. And I'm going to let this just rest. The flour on top. Rest in place right here for about 15 minutes. Rest right on its spot. I'm going to cover it with a towel, set the timer for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to do my actual shaping. And I'm going to see how well it's going to hold a shape. So you just cover it with a towel and let it go. This is going to relax the gluten again so that you can put it into the shape of bread that you want. All right.
I'm gonna say, Mom, I'm gonna say, don't push the bread down.
They just heard that because it's recording it. And we are going to press it down, right?
Yeah.
So
Now
next,
press it down.
after 15 minutes,
Yeah, after 15 minutes,
we are going to divide this in half because this is going to make
this in half.
2 loaves.
Because it's in 2 loaves.
And my assistant here is going to help us make some bread. I don't measure it, I just eyeball it. There's 1, there's 2. So let's flour this. Don't keep dragging your hand through there. And then we're going to press them down again. Flatten them out. And make them flat and round. And I'm going to make them into 2 balls again like I just did. And this time they'll be a little bit firmer because they had that nice little rest. Is this bread for your birthday?
Yeah.
For your birthday party tomorrow?
And this bread's for my birthday tomorrow.
You see grandmas and grandpas.
And we'll see grandmas and grandpas.
Yay!
Yay!
All right. Then, after I form it into a ball, I'm gonna flip it over. Let that guy rest. And do the same with this one.
Can I get into this one?
Mm-hmm.
Can I get into this one?
See how it's never sticking to the table. It can always just sort of slide around. That's what you want. Press it down, press it down. It's going to stick to your hands. And then roll it into a ball again.
And then roll it into a ball. Nice and flour.
And we're doing this so fast because we want to get it done before the littlest one wakes up, huh? Okay, pull your hands out of there, Pearly. Flour this a little bit. Flip it over. Let it rest next to its buddy here. Firm up just a little bit. Kind of cup them too if you want to get them just a little bit firmer. That looks good. Oh, good. All right, sprinkle a little flour. You gonna sprinkle some flour on top? Good. And then we're gonna do another like between 15 and 30 minute rest. All right, and then we're gonna just do the same step after about 15 minutes. Deflate it. You'll hear popping and making noises. You're just going to deflate it, get all the air bubbles out. Not all of them, but press some of the air out of it. And then form it into your final shape. Of parchment papers here. I'm going to just lightly flour them. And pull these into nice little balls. And this will be the final shape that you bake it in, that you're going to let it do its final rise and its final bake. So you want them to look whatever shape you're hoping to get out of them. I'm just doing 2 round loaves. And we're going to put the nice side facing up, lightly floured. And I'm just going to let these sit right here until they are about double in size, or just nice and puffy. They don't have to be double in size, but just nice and puffy and looking like they're ready to bake. Towards the end of their rise time, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 425. And they'll be ready to go. All right, so it's been about another hour and a half since I put them. I went ahead and took them off the parchment paper and just set them into my baskets to keep them in a nice round shape. They are looking quite lovely, nice and puffy, about doubled in size. I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but there they are. And now I have my oven preheated to 425 degrees, and I have my Dutch oven in the oven getting nice and hot. And we're going to score these. I'm just going to use a serrated knife because that works really well. So I'm going to score them a nice deep score down the middle, or you can do a design if you want to. And then I'm going to put them in the Dutch oven and mist it really well with water. That is what helps give it a nice crust, a nice chewy crust. Okay, silly goose. So we're going to get the hot Dutch oven out. Careful, Pearly, this is hot. Okay, go away from the camera. Okay. I want you to go away. This is very hot. And I'm going to give it a good, let's see, lift it out of the basket here.
You have 2 of those baskets?
Yep. I sure do. Being so careful to not deflate it. And I'm just going to give it a good deep score. The scoring is what helps it expand quickly in the oven without ripping on the bottom. So that is a good trick to have. And then I just drop it right into my oven, in my Dutch oven here, and spritz it with a nice spritz of water.
Can I get water?
Sure. Just be careful, this oven is hot. Come right over here and spritz it. Don't touch this. Very hot. Right on the bread. There you go. Good little spritz. And then I'm going to give it one more little dust of flour.
What? Where was that?
This is your walkie-talkie.
Which walkie-talkie was that? I guess this was. Okay, hello?
And then we put the lid on and stick it in the oven.
Hello? Hello?
So here we have,
Hello?
you can't see it real well. Scored, dusted, watered, covered, and in the oven she goes. I put it in for 30 minutes and then I'm going to take the lid off and pull it out of the Dutch oven until it's nice and crispy. And I just leave it in the oven until it's the texture on the outside that I want. Careful, Pearly, this is hot.
I'm being careful.
Okay. And I only have one Dutch oven, so I'm just going to leave this other guy covered here. And I'll put him in when I'm ready to go. Okay, so I just put the other one in the Dutch oven. I took this guy out and I'm just setting him on the rack, and it's going to get nice and browned up. And I'll pull that out about, 5 to 8 minutes. All right, so they are all done. You want that nice, deep, golden brown color. They're going to feel like rock hard when they come out of the oven, but as they steam inside, they will soften up and become nice and chewy on the crust. I think when I took them out of the Dutch oven and just set them on the oven rack inside the oven, I think I had them in there for about 12 minutes to get this color. But it's going to be different for every oven, and it's going to be different for every preference. So just do what you like, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that this was helpful.